Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Richard. So indeed, it's a very pleasure for me to address your faculty members through this seminar that the department has organized. So I first of all thank Dr. Richard, my colleague, for inviting me to share my experience in qualitative research. Dr. Richard, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Dr. Amber, we can hear.
Right. Okay. And also, I need your permission to share the screen as well.
It's already given. You can share.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Right. So once again, thank you very much and good evening, everyone, for this session, and thank you very much for the opportunity provided to me. So today, mainly what I am going to talk is, when I talked to Dr. Richard, he mainly taught like, where shall we begin? So then myself and Dr. Richard, we discuss like, first of all, we'll have a kind of overview because some of you may be not that much into qualitative research. As Dr. Richard mentioned, most of the scholars are, I think, more towards quantitative research. So then we'll have the today's session as a kind of awareness session, and then we'll see the interest coming from the academics. So then based on that, I think we can, go for some advanced things, maybe like to do a, analysis section very, separately into this. And also today, you know that most of the qualitative analysis is also, undertaken through softwares. For example, mainly the software that I am using at the moment is Nvivo, which is the most famous one. And in addition to that, actually, there are, several other softwares are also available. So if the members, if the academic staff members are interested about using the software for their, analysis, so I think we can plan, separate session for that as well later. So that's maybe like future thing that if you are really interested in this area, so we can, take it up further, whatever the remaining things that we can do. So, what I'm going to mainly talk about the big picture of the qualitative research. So I will be taking you through, what kind of situations, what kind of instances that we can address the qualitative research, until how you can present your findings within these 2 hours given. So I'm talking about the overview, but you can stop me at any time if you don't understand any of the technical aspect behind this session. So I'm always like to answer your questions rather than totally covering the whole session, right? So that's not the intention. I want to make the audience very much clear about what I am explaining. So to do this, so this is the plan of the session. So what I thought is like, since some of you are more towards quantitative research, I thought like to discuss what kind of situations that we can use for qualitative research, what kind of research problems are possible for us to look into through the qualitative research. And the difference may not be, I'm not touching that much because as quantitative researchers, you really know your area, and then once I go through the qualitative aspects, so you will be able to find out how this is going to be different. But please keep in mind, like I always want to make this difference because the quantitative researchers, I think they tend to look at most of the things from the quantitative perspective. But as a qualitative researcher, when I'm going for some of the maybe students' presentation and things like that, I feel like when some of the quantitative scholars, when they are commenting on the qualitative research, I think so there is a kind of a disadvantage for qualitative research students. So that's why I want to make this the difference also throughout the session, and not just handling in 1 or 2 slides. And then this is the main area actually. Qualitative research journey. So if someone wants to join with this journey, so how can we take this whole process forward? So we'll just try to see what kind of research problems are possible. Actually, there are different type of research problems are available, and we can address different type of research problems through qualitative research, and then research questions, how you can develop it to be in line with the qualitative, the overall methodology, and the type of research designs. And one of the most important aspects is actually the philosophical assumptions behind the qualitative research. So as quantitative researchers, I think you are really familiar with the philosophical assumptions which informs your quantitative studies. But let's see how the qualitative researchers, they have been influenced by the philosophical assumptions. And then this is something very much new, something very much unique to qualitative research, that's we call quality assurance. Quality assurance behind the qualitative research methodology. So that is really, really important. So basically, as quantitative researchers, you are really worried about the reliability, validity, and things like that. So we are looking at those things from a different perspective in qualitative research. So that's what we are going to look into here. And then analysis of data. I think this is the most important section that Dr. Richard told me to do. So we'll see how far that I can do within this time provided. Because to do a comprehensive analytical section, it needs a lot of time. Particularly if I am supposed to use the software, I think before we are analyzing the data, we need to little bit familiarize ourselves with the software. So it takes a little bit of time, but I am trying to, without going to the software, like I can share you some of the manual analysis that is being done by some of our students. So then based on that, if you are interested, we can move forward to another session on purely on the analysis part. And then how to present and interpret the qualitative research findings, maybe a little bit different from the quantitative research. So this is the content that I am trying to cover within this stipulated time. Okay, so let's start with which kind of situations that we can use qualitative research. I think now as quantitative researchers, you are mainly gathering numbers to test a particular theory or to test a particular hypothesis which has been built up through the comprehensive analysis of literature, but which is not happening in qualitative research. We are not going to test any hypothesis or we are not going to test any theory here. We are mainly going to develop a theory, or we are going to explore a kind of a phenomena. Now, for example, these days we can see like most of the research is being done on working from home. So we can do a qualitative research to explore the phenomenon of working from home. What is meant by working from home, right? So then you can select some of the employees in an organization, and then you can look into what is the meaning of working from home, rather than how working from home influence the productivity or things like that. So that's quantitative aspect. Or you can, and also please remember that the qualitative research, we are going to look into the things in the natural setting, natural environment. So which means if you really like the qualitative research, you should have a kind of an interest to go into the field and try to spend the time with the participants. So that kind of approach is really, really needed. So without now in the quantitative, you are mainly giving a kind of a questionnaire and then let the participants to fill up that questionnaire. And even through a Google form, today quantitative researchers can give their questionnaires to the participants. But here we cannot do that because we are there as qualitative researchers to develop the knowledge with the presence of the participants, with the presence of the interviewees. So that's a very different phenomenon. And also we can we can go in to explore some of the complex issues without clearly defining the variables. Now when you go to the quantitative, you are really defining the variables, measures, and everything by taking the things from the previous scholars. But here we don't do that. I will show you how you can do this thing. And also we can do a qualitative research to explain a process or explain a kind of a behavior. Now, for example, in my own discipline of marketing management, So we can see like consumer behavior during the pandemic situation. So which is a very, different, very new, type of a consumer behavior. So we can explain the consumer behavior during the COVID-19 through a qualitative study without looking at the previous variables or previous measures and things like that. Or we can use this for describing an issue using a non-numerical data. So we as qualitative researchers, we are not going to collect the numbers. We are going to collect the stories of the people. We are going to collect the narratives of the people and their explanations and mainly their experience with certain instances. So then by gathering those kind of experience, their interest, their feelings, so we are going to answer our research questions. So that's what was going to happen in here. And also you can use a qualitative research to understand a particular phenomenon in very detail. So as I explained to you earlier, maybe if you look into a human resource management, what is meant by employee deviant behavior. So deviant behavior can be a kind of phenomenon in HRM. So you can, explore that particular phenomenon in detail by gathering the stories of your employees, by gathering the stories of your management, and then we try to understand the whole phenomenon, understand the whole behavior. So that's mainly going to happen. And also in the qualitative research, we are actually collecting participant stories. So as Dr. Richard also pointed out earlier, we can collect a lot of stories of the participants. Now, for example, in fields like entrepreneurship, one of our students actually wanted to do a study on how these, entrepreneurs who came from a very, very low background, from a very, humble background, how they have come into a very, good position at the end. So what is their story behind it? Right? Now, for example, if you're looking to some of the entrepreneurs, maybe in our country, maybe someone like, if you go back to, early days, maybe Hinya Puhami. So how you can, Hinya Puhami is basically the owner of Maliban. So how you can, collect the data, how you can build a story about Hinya Puhami. To tell how he has developed such a big organization for providing employment opportunities for the people. So we as qualitative researchers, we are there to collect the stories, the experience, and explanations of the respondents. But finally, what's really important is, because if one of you are get ready to do your PhDs or masters, you have to submit a dissertation. So no one will, listen to your story if that particular story does not fit into a research question, right? So that's the interesting thing. So we have to keep in our mind, there's a research problem is there. And then based on the research problem, we develop the research questions. And then through the story that we are building, through the experience that we are collecting, finally, we should be able to develop the dissertation as well. So that's the interesting part. So I think, so that's the, main challenge actually some of the qualitative researchers are having. So when they go to the field, they feel, they fall in love with the data. They fall in love with the respondents. But ultimately you develop a nice story. The issue is that nice story does not fit into the research question. So then the examiners will tell, okay, so this we cannot accept. So you will not deserve your, postgraduate degree. So there are, instances like that. So that can happen. So this is where I think you need a good supervision as well with respect to how you can address your research questions based on the stories or the experience that you have collected from the participant. So this is basically the situations where we can use qualitative research. So if you have any question, please stop me at any time. I'm not not going to cover the slides. I want you to understand the content. So that is my whole thing. And also I will definitely email you this PowerPoint presentation to Dr. Richard, so then you can have it. So no need of taking notes. So if you have any doubt, let's discuss that. Okay, so this is just some kind of story that I want to tell, like some kind of our studies that we have done with some students. So these are now, for example, if you take the first one, I think those who are from Kandy, so this particular place called Hiloya, which is one of the nice tourism attraction village close to Knuckles. So one of our student actually, he has done a study on this. So he selected the method called case study method. I will explain to you later what is a case study method, because when you take qualitative research, there are different research approaches available. So case study is one of the research approach. So that particular student, what he has looked into is this. So he wanted to understand basically how the agrotourism, this agricultural based tourism is happening in this hill or a village, by developing that particular area before the COVID actually. This is somewhere like 2018 work. So his main research is, his topic of this research is agrotourism for rural development, creating a business model through an exploratory case study. So what that particular student called Sanjay has done, myself, actually both as the supervisor and myself, and Sanjay, both of us visited this particular place. So at that time, we can see a lot of, tourists are, coming to the hill or a village. So it's like, agricultural village, where when you go to that place, it's a very totally new experience. It's very close to the Knuckles mountain range. So you can think of, what kind of a climate it has. So they actually have achieved a greater success through this particular model village that has been created. So we wanted to explore that thing as a case study, how this particular village called Hill Oil, how they have been successful as a agricultural village with the association of tourism industry. So we were able to generate very nice findings with respect to that. So then you can see, like, if you want to do a qualitative research, actually you don't need to take several settings or several contexts. Only one village may be enough if I'm talking about something like rural development. And also you can do a qualitative research even by selecting one single organization. Right now let's look at the next one. So then I will show you how you can do a research selecting one single organization. That single organization that you are selecting should fit into your research phenomena. That's the interesting thing, right? Now a person called Ekanayaka, so she has done a study on this ethical marketing for internationalization, a case study based on entrepreneurial organization. So she selected a very nice organization called Celine. So this is a very unique case study, I must tell you, because they are producing what we call handloom garments, and they are the only one fair trade certified exporter from Sri Lanka to the global market. Right? So you can't find any of the other organizations. So you see, it's a very unique case study, and that particular unique case study exactly fit into the title. So that is very important when you do a qualitative research, right? So then she has selected that one, and then she has actually now this particular organization has a very big network of suppliers. You can see, like, these rural ladies, so they are making what we call these apparel at their homes. Sometimes they have some workshops. So we actually visited several of these suppliers, and also we interviewed the company personnel, their business development manager, the founder, entrepreneur, and everyone. And we developed a nice case study, for this particular area. And that particular research actually, it's an undergraduate research though, right? So I wanted to highlight this also. Both of these two researchers are actually undergraduates, but I must tell you, after completing their dissertation, they were able to publish 2 journal articles based on their undergraduate dissertation. So that's an interesting thing. I think, I don't like to comment or rather criticize the quantitative. So what I want to tell is, like, when you do a qualitative work, you tend to understand the context really well, more than the quantitative researchers, because you are in the field. You go there, you spend the time with the people, and sometimes you have to, stay with them, for some hours, and then you collect the data by yourself. So that's the beauty of this. And then you tend to understand your research work in very, very detail. So I think, so that's the kind of, strong point that I want to highlight here. So these are, some samples. So if you need the full papers, I can send you how they have built up these, dissertations as well as their, manuscripts for the publication. Okay, so this is, what kind of situation, so what kind of instances that you can go for qualitative research. So it's clear that you can go for a single organization to do a qualitative research, no problem. Because here we are going into the depth of the respondents. We are going into the depth of the data. That's the, interesting thing. So because of that, even one single organization can do a qualitative research, particularly a, case study approach, you can do that. Right. I hope the story that I am trying to say is clear to you, but if you have any question, please stop me at any time. Right. So this is basically the difference. I'm not going to touch, not going to explain in very detail, because I know that you really familiar with the difference, but see the, summary of the, difference. In quantitative research, what you do is you are actually trying to do a confirmatory research. Confirmatory means you try to confirm the theory based on your findings. So you are making observation and then you try to test the theory that you have already been, surveyed through the literature. Or you may have developed a hypothesis. So you want to test that and try to see whether it's right or wrong, right? And then you will make your academic contribution based on that. But here in the qualitative research, we also make the observation, but ultimately our research is going to be exploratory in nature. What does that mean? We are trying to develop a theory. So don't worry now. When you say the word theory, so people will clear. So as a researcher who is staying, in Peradeniya University or in Kotalavala Defense University, can I develop a big theory like stakeholder theory? Can I develop big theory like social contract theory? So you don't need to make a huge theory like that, because those kind of theories have been, accumulated a lot of literature, and then only it has come into a, status like this, right? So in our case, in our qualitative research, what we do is we try to develop the themes at the end of the day, right? So we collect the data and then we analyze it and we try to develop the themes. That's what we call theory, right? So I will show you how you can develop the, themes at the end of the day, from the, qualitative data analysis process. So that's what we are going to do. And then the quantitative researchers, they can borrow the theories or the themes that the qualitative researchers are developing, and they can do a confirmatory study on that, right? So that's basically the difference, right? Okay, so this is the big picture, which I wanted to tell you all the time, right? Now this is very important if you are trying to do your dissertation based on qualitative research, right? I think even for a quantitative, this is something really important. When you handle your dissertation, so I'm talking about a dissertation, not a, journal article here, right? Because I know some of you want to do PhDs, or maybe you want to do, MPhil or whatever it is. So when you do that, try to get this big picture very clear to you, right? So that's very important, right? So you need to go to the research problem and then you try to pick up the literature gap. So that's very important. And then based on that, you need to develop the purpose of your study, right? So when you come to qualitative research, so these are some kind of action verbs that you can use to write the qualitative research purpose. Maybe you want to understand the employee, talent management approach in a particular sector. So that can be your purpose. Or you really want to explain the consumer behavior during the COVID-19 time. You want to describe how, maybe employee, deviant behavior is happening in, small scale businesses. Or you want to illustrate something. You want to illustrate how, particular, maybe a phenomenon is being, recognized and is being rewarded in certain organizations. Right? You want to explore, maybe you want to explore how the consumer behavior looks like in a COVID-19 situation. Or you want to conceptualize, let's say you want to conceptualize talent management. You want to conceptualize maybe maybe any particular area that you really like in your area of discipline, right? So these are some of the action verbs that you can use. The interesting thing is, based on the research problem, the purpose of your study has to be changed, right? Which is even common to the quantitative research as well. And then when you go to the research questions, which is basically based on the research problem and the purpose of the study, those research questions in qualitative studies have to be exploratory in nature. I will tell you how you can develop exploratory research question, and they should be open-ended. And also qualitative research questions should be specific context dependent, right? So you need to refer to a particular context. So that is very, very important, right? And then the research design. So I'm just going to touch some of the areas here, and this is really important: philosophical assumptions, right? So when you take qualitative one, like in quantitative, we also need to talk about the ontology and epistemology, right? What is meant by reality and what is meant by the knowledge gathering process. In addition to that, in qualitative research, we need to talk about this thing. This is we call axiology, right? I will introduce this particular concept, because in qualitative research, when you're writing a dissertation, this is really a must. What is your axiological stance or position in your data analysis and collection process, which is very important. And then the quality assurance. Right, when it comes to quality assurance, mainly in quantitative, we are talking about reliability, validity. So that's the main thing. But here in qualitative, we are mainly looking at credibility, transferability, and the dependability. So these are the three important things, right? And then how to analyze the data, and then a presentation. So what I want to tell you, if you are planning a dissertation based on qualitative research, try to see this big picture early. Right? Try to see the big picture early. Otherwise, what will happen? You develop a research problem, and then you go behind the supervisor, and then somehow try to develop the questions, and then you are going to develop the, let's say, your methodology part. So I think that way has to be changed. What you need to do is problem, questions, methodology, and everything should be decided on in an alignment manner, in the same how can I say, in the same alignment. You need to have that. Otherwise, what will happen? You have to change here and there, right? So that can happen. That has happened to some of the students as well. So better to think about the big picture of most of these things early. So then I think PhD work or maybe MPhil work, dissertation can be finished very early. That's why I think some of the students you may have seen, like once they carry out their study, so there is a problem in the methodology comes, right? Why that is happening? We have not taken the big picture. Taking the big picture early can allow to finish your work early. I think that's a really important thing, which I learned practically when I was doing my dissertation. Right. So this is the big picture, the consistency of all these things. I think you are familiar with that. Research problem, purpose, question, design, all these things should be aligned to each other, should be consistent. That consistency we should be able to reflect in our research proposal as well. So I'm not going to touch that. Okay, so let's look at what kind of research problems are possible, right? So then I think now research problem is almost familiar to all of the academic colleagues. So you can find out your research problem mainly by looking at your what we call literature gap, right? So you go through the research of the earlier researchers, and then you try to find out the literature gap. And also I think mainly something that I am promoting with the students that I supervise is all the time, when you go to the particular literature gap, right? Once you find the literature gap, try to do a kind of a pilot study also. Try to do a small pilot study and try to see the research problem from the practical perspective as well. Because we are, all of us are from management background. So whatever that we do ultimately should benefit the organizations. So I think whatever the research that we do, qualitative or quantitative, it has to have greater implications ultimately for the managers in the organization as well as for other stakeholders in the organization, right? So what I want to tell is, rather than just taking a literature gap, try to see whether this particular gap, if I address, what would be the implications on the organization and its stakeholders is. So that's very, very important thing. I think from my experience by supervising the students and doing my own thesis, which I learned, right? So that's very important. So I'm not going to touch on how to develop the research problem, because that's not going to be the task of the today's work, right? Okay, so this is important. Whatever the things in the whole research journey important to the qualitative, I'm going to discuss here. Okay, when you develop the research purpose for a qualitative research, this is important. What are the action words that we are using, right? So you cannot do, for example, you cannot do a qualitative research to evaluate something, right? Or just to identify something, you cannot do. So I think when you are planning to do a PhD or a MPhil work, you need to have a much more broader term, much more broad action work, maybe like explaining a particular phenomenon or describing, illustrate, develop a phenomenon like conceptualizing would be really, really much more better, right? You can do a little bit of identifying, but I think that is not enough for a master's or a PhD level, right? And also when you talk about the purpose of a qualitative research, very important is you need to tell the phenomena, the situation, the case that you are explaining, try to explain, right? So you need to look into the specific issue that you are trying to address in your particular study. So I have an example, I will come into that. And then what is the context? Who are the participants, and what is the setting that you are looking at? Right? Who are the specific participants going to involve with your study? So look at here. So this is a kind of a example for a research purpose. The purpose of this study is to describe. So it's going to describe how the April 21st terrorism attack influenced marketing strategies of small-scale hotels located in Kandy. Right? So you can see the action verb is there, description, right? So what is the phenomena? Phenomena is all about, the marketing strategies. When marketing strategies just after the terrorism attack. So that's the phenomena. What is the context? What the situation? Situation is all about the small scale hotels in Kandy. So these three things have to be there in your purpose very clearly. The action verb, the phenomena, and the setting or the context. So this is very important, right? So that's has to be very, very clear in a qualitative study, right? Research question, right? So this is a little bit going to be different from the quantitative, right? In the case of research questions, we are basically looking at research questions which are exploratory in nature and open-ended in nature. Open-ended means there is no yes or no answer at the end. Right? We are not going to prove the hypothesis here. We are going to develop a hypothesis, or we are going to develop a story or a narrative or explanation. Right? So because of that, most of the research questions in qualitative research comes with either what, how, or why. So these are the most appropriate research questions, the beginnings that you can have for a qualitative research question. And also it has to show the context dependability. The context should be highlighted very well, right? So these are, rather than, saying the characteristics, so let's go to the practical work so then you can understand it. When you take qualitative research questions, you can have one of these qualitative research questions, right? One type of research question we call ontological, little bit theory, but I will try to make it, understandable to you. Ontological research questions, or you can have epistemological research question. What does it mean? Ontology means, ontology is all about try to understand the reality of the people. No, okay, people are working from home, right? Actually, what is meant by working from home? So we try to capture the participant reality. So we try to understand the nature of the participants with respect to working from home phenomena. So here what we do, we try to capture the participant reality of the participant. So then you see some examples. What is the nature of working from home? So you can complete this, dotted things. What is the nature of working from home? what are the lived experience of working from home. So, when we are, thinking of working from home, so if I do a lecture here, so my son will come and try to interrupt me, right? So that's why I stay in the faculty and do this, right? So you see, what are the lived experiences? So you can capture that one through your study. What are the lived experiences of working from home? Now, how difficult that is, right? What are the interesting things behind working from home? And what is it like being working from home? So you can see here what we try to do. We try to understand the reality of our participant. What is the reality of working from home? You see, that's why we call this one ontological research question. There's another type. This is we call epistemological research question. What is epistemology? Epistemology is all about the knowledge, right? It's all about how we are gathering the knowledge. That's what we call epistemology, right? So here what we try to do, we try to understand a particular phenomena in more detail, right? So earlier one, we try to see the reality of the participant. Here we try to understand the phenomena, right? How does maybe working from home looks like at the end of the day. So you try to explain the working from home phenomena in detail, not try to capture the participant reality. Right? You try to go into the phenomena in more detail. What does it mean to be working from home? What are the factors which influence working from home? Right? So here you see, we try to understand the phenomena. Here, we try to understand the participant reality. You see the difference? Right? Understand the reality of the participant and understand the phenomena is two different things. So based on that, in qualitative research, we tend to have two types of research questions, either ontology or looking at the epistemology, right? So we'll see later, like if you need further explanations, I can provide you. Right, so let's look at the research design very quickly, because this is where the most important section comes, the analysis part, right? So under the research design, right, so three main things are important. What is the research approach, right? And the data collection strategy and the data analysis strategy. I think if any one of you are planning to do a qualitative based work, deciding your research approach early is the best thing. Right? Talk to your supervisor and see which approach is going to be suitable. Because now, for someone who is not familiar with qualitative research, for that person, case study or maybe some other approaches are there, I will explain to you. They will not see the difference between different approaches. That's a very risky thing. Right? You need to select your research approach very early based on your research problem. Right? That's what I told you earlier. Research problem, methodology, and all the other things in your research proposal should be consistent with each other, should match with each other very well. Right? Otherwise, finally, we will not be able to conduct our study within the stipulated time. Right? Okay, I will introduce you the different type of approaches, so then you can think which one is more suitable for my study. Right? So different approaches are there, and then data collection strategy and data analysis strategy. Right. So then first I will tell you now here what I'm going to talk is research approaches. So there are different type of approaches actually available. Today, I must tell you, with the COVID-19 and with the development of the social media, there are new approaches are also emerging in qualitative research. Right? So this is a very dynamic field. This approach development is a very dynamic field. So you need to figure out which approach I'm going to have, I'm going to adopt for my study. I'm going to introduce you 5 approaches that I sometimes use and sometimes my students are using, and I will give you some examples also, right? So then you get an idea, okay, this is this approach, this is that approach, like that, right? Okay, so let's look at the different approaches. The first approach, so there is no, this one is better than that one, there is no such thing, right? approach will be determined based on your research problem, right? Okay, let's look at the first approach. We call this one phenomenological approach. Phenomenological approach. Phenomenology means something like this. Now you see, now for example, we can see all the entrepreneurs at the moment, they are going through the COVID-19 difficulty. So they are losing the business and everything is happening, right? So this COVID-19 thing is a common thing that entrepreneurs are experienced with, right? So in the phenomenological approach, what we do, we try to see the people who have gone through a particular phenomena and we try to analyze the experience they have. Can you understand, right? So we see a particular phenomena and then who have gone through this particular phenomena, and then we try to see what are the different experience, right? Now, for example, you see, let's take 5 entrepreneurs in our country, right? Let's say start with a very big one, maybe Dhammika Pereira or maybe Mr. Vagapitiya, and then you can think about some other scale of entrepreneurs as well. You see their level of development, their level of achievements are ultimately different. Why different? Because their background is different. Why even during the COVID-19 difficult time, why some of the entrepreneurs have achieved the success? I don't need to name them. So you know who are they. Why some entrepreneurs have been success, why some entrepreneurs are not successful. Why that happened? Because based on their background, based on the business that they have been doing, based on the experience that they are having. Right? So some entrepreneurs are successful, some are not, but they have gone through the same experience of COVID-19. Right? So that's where you can use the phenomenological approach. Right? So I have a kind of a story or an example to show you here. I think someone put something. Chamila. Yeah, Chamila is asking question, can 2 approaches be combined? Chamila, we can do, but we have to be very careful in doing that. I will answer your question once I explain the all 5, right? Okay. So now this is an interesting study. So one of our students actually called Yogendran, she's from Batiklo, right? So she studied the thing which I told you earlier. Right, so this one is a study on the experience of rural tourism entrepreneurs competitiveness during COVID-19 outbreak, a phenomenological study. What she has done, she has gone to her hometown, Batiklo, and she studied the tourism industry is hardly affected from it's very severely affected from the COVID-19 time. But she told me some people are doing well, right? So then I told, okay, so let's do a phenomenological approach. Why phenomenology? Everyone gone through the COVID-19 difficulty and then they have a different story to tell at the end, right? So that's where you can use a phenomenological approach, right? I hope you can understand, right? And the second one is also actually a phenomenological one here, right? This is something very, very new thing. Those who are more towards marketing, you probably know what is virtual reality. So virtual reality means like now this particular person you can see, he is wearing a kind of a glass here. Once you wear this glass, you can see a very different world in front of you, right? So you see now very recently this Facebook, they have changed their company name. Anyone who is knowing the company name of Facebook now? Yes, any volunteer? The Facebook current organization name? Any volunteer? Yes, the Facebook current company name, what we call it? Right? We call it Meta, right? So now the social media is more towards developing what we call meta world, right? So to develop the meta world, the equipment called virtual reality is really important. So this particular equipment. And today during the COVID-19 time, what happens? Some countries are promoting virtual reality based tourism. What does that mean? A person living in France can come to Sri Lanka by wearing a virtual reality a kind of equipment. Right? That's what we call virtual reality based tourism. So one of our students who wants to do this one, So he has done a virtual reality for experiential marketing in Sri Lankan hospitality industry. What this student has done, some of our hotels have already started virtual reality based, equipments. Right, so you can see some of our hotels are a little bit, advanced than some other bigger hotel chains. So they started virtual reality, right? And then what the student wanted to study, what is the experience of utilizing virtual reality for promoting tourism in Sri Lanka, right? Whose experience? The tourism organizations, managers, and their entrepreneurs. And even we interview some of the university lecturers because they had some experience in virtual reality. So you see, this is a phenomenological study. We have gone for people who gather that particular experience, and then we capture that experience and we develop our dissertation. So that's what we call phenomenological study. I hope you can understand that, right? I will come to the Chamila's question later. The next one we call grounded theory approach. Grounded theory, what we do, we are trying to develop a theory here. We are trying to develop explanation or a kind of a model or a kind of a, we are trying to sometimes explain a process. How maybe talent management is being taken place in a ICT sector. So we can come up with a theory for that. To further strengthen the talent management approach, we can come up with a theory how this talent management is basically happening in the ICT sector, right? So we go to the ICT sector organization and then we study that one. Sometimes we have to stay there for some time and collect the information, and then finally we come and develop a theory. That's we call grounded theory. Why we call grounded? Because it's the data coming from the ground. Data coming from the earth. Earth means from your respondents. So we try to develop a theory there, right? The next one we call narrative approach. This is mainly we can use in entrepreneurship studies. Narrative. Narrative means similar word, story. This is a storytelling thing. A storytelling. So what you do, you can look into some of the entrepreneurs and see the story that they have, and then you come and develop a story based on the story that they are telling to address your research question. Please keep in mind, in all these approaches, there are research questions, right? Whatever the approach that you have chosen should fit into the research question that you have, right? So that's a narrative. Narrative, we try to develop a story at the end of the day by collecting information from different participants, right? Okay, so then these are the other two. I'm just going to explain only 5 approaches, right? And then I will come to the Chamila's question. Case study method. Case study method means here we try to be very, very strictly defining a particular situation, right? We can now, for example, I told you earlier, we have done a study on Hill or a village, how tourism is being taken place. So we develop and we design a boundary. We have not gone beyond Hill lawyer. So that's a case study. But to gather the data about case study, we look at multiple data sources. What are the multiple data sources? We went to the village. We talked to the farmers. We talked to the people who are handling the tourism project. We talked to the people who came to that particular time to visit that particular tourism village. Actually, we had to go several times because we wanted to gather very rich data about that particular case study. So that's what we call case study. We define a particular situation, maybe geographically or maybe time-wise you can define, right? And then gather the data from multiple data sources. That's an interesting thing. For a case study, you can go for multiple data sources, right? Ethnography, I must tell you, this is mainly coming from the one of the area in social sciences and humanities we call anthropology. Ethnography mainly coming from anthropological and sociological perspectives, right? So what anthropologists and sociologists they did in the past with respect to ethnography, They went into some places and they stayed on those places for maybe a few months, and they actually naturally they studied what is happening in Vedda community, let's say in Mayangana. Right? So that's kind of a sociological study, maybe an anthropological study. Today, we can use the ethnographic studies to study the organizations. Right? With this COVID-19 time, right? So you can go for an organization with their permission, and you can see how universities are working. How you can think about your own university, right? How the university is working within the COVID-19 situations. You can do ethnographic study for that one by staying within the university, right? Because you are a part of the university, right? So you try to understand the phenomenon of academic work, the continuation of the academic work within the university by staying there. The interesting thing is you try to be very close to the participant, for the students and for the lecturers and everyone, right? So that's the ethnographic study. And I must tell you, since we talk about the ethnography, today we are talking about digital ethnography. Right? You can see like now for example, now people are mostly living with the digital world, right? So you can see, particularly if you are mainly familiar with this branding and marketing and all that, we can see that we have brand community. Now, for example, let's say let's take a brand, let's say Manchi, right? Manchi brand. So Manchi, when they're introducing a particular product, how their social media group is behaving inside the social media group, in the Facebook account, how the consumers are behaving. So you are doing an ethnographic study, but not in the real world. You are doing an ethnographic study in the virtual world. We call it digital ethnography. Right? And then now there's another extension to this one, we call ethnography also. We try to see the social networks and all these and try to analyze it to generate very good findings. So anyhow, so what I want to tell is, these approaches, we have a lot. So I'm just highlighting you 5 approaches here. Why I highlight these 5 is this. The reason is, these are the 5 approaches most commonly used. Right? These are the 5 approaches most commonly used. Actually, I just wrote the article on this one, so which is still not published by the particular journal. So I just wrote an article here, Qualitative Research Inquiry to explore the corporate leaders in the time of COVID-19 time. During the COVID-19 time, how you can explore the corporate leaders by using these 5 approaches. So I argued, sometimes we can use phenomenological approach, sometimes grounded theory, sometimes narrative, case study, or ethnography we can use. How entrepreneurs, corporate leaders are managing their businesses during the COVID-19 time, right? By referring to one of these qualitative approach you can do, right? So the interesting thing is, you need to develop a very nice research problem and then see whether that particular research problem is lined with the particular approach. So this is where you need the support of the supervisor as well, right? Okay, so to answer Chamila's question, Chamila is, can we combine? Of course you can combine, no problem. But you have to be very, very cautious. Why we have to be cautious? You see, in the phenomenological one, we are capturing experience, right? In the grounded theory, we try to develop a theory. So what you need to remember, if you are combining the two, once you capture the experience of people who have gone through the COVID-19 situation, maybe entrepreneurs, and then if you are going to use a grounded theory also, try to make sure at the end of the day, you have developed a theory. If you are submitting a dissertation, make sure that in chapter 5, in last chapter, you develop a theoretical contribution, or a theory has to be there, right? So if you cannot develop a theory, don't go for the combination. Don't do the combination, right? Some people actually combine the narrative with the grounded. You can do, no problem, right? I will tell you, when it comes to grounded theory, now in the analysis process, there are steps available. I will show you the steps. when you can go to the last step of the analysis, then only you need to select the grounded theory. Otherwise, don't select. Because when you are thinking of grounded theory, you need to go for the qualitative analysis, the maximum level. Then only the theory will be generated. If you are not planning to do that, I think better to avoid combining the two, right? Combining the two have to be very carefully you need to handle, and also you need to get a methodological literature also to show that your research problem is a problem that you can explore by a combination of both of these. If you cannot do, my recommendation is go only for one approach. Go only for one approach. That's what I can say, right? But take up the challenge, right? Sometimes it will work. Who knows, right? Okay, so that's my own experience of doing this and supervising some students. Okay, so this is what I told. I will share you this article if you are interested. Okay, right now I told you earlier, based on the research question, right? In qualitative research, we have two types of research questions now: ontological and epistemological. Now, based on the ontological or the epistemology, you have different research approaches also. Now you see here, when you are going for an ontological research question, you are actually going for phenomenological study mostly, or a narrative study. Sometimes little bit to ethnography also, because here we try to explore the participant reality. Reality means experience. Reality means the story. Reality means you have to go and stay with them, and then only you try to understand the reality. You see, these three involve a lot of field work. If you are someone really like the field work, go for this: phenomenology, narrative, or ethnography. If you are someone don't like much of the field work, going and staying a lot, right? You can go for a epistemological one, little bit case study you can do, right? But once again, you can see ethnography, grounded theory, phenomenology. But I think case study is mostly suitable for epistemological kind of studies, because in the case study we try to understand the phenomenon, right? We try to understand what is meant by let's say agricultural based tourism in more detail. That's the phenomenon, by gathering data from different sources. Because in a case study, we are gathering data from different sources now, right? So then you see, based on the epistemological research question or the ontological research question, approach can be different. Right? That is a little bit of a theory. Theory means methodological theory, right? So these are not my own invention. So I have to, properly cite the person who has done this. This is Saldana. Saldana is one of the person actually contributed a lot to the qualitative work. I will tell you what is his major contribution later when I come to the analysis part. Right. So of course, in qualitative, you can gather data using many different collection method, observation, participants observation. You can do that for ethnographic kind of studies, in-depth studies, which I did mostly so far, in-depth interviews actually. I also couldn't do much of the observation so far, right? Or you can do documentary analysis also, right? Documentary analysis also you can do. Maybe like if you have certain documents which are written by a particular entrepreneur, maybe the entrepreneur's diary, who knows? The diary can be there. So you can look into his diary, and then you can go for a narrative study. Right? So documentary analysis you can purely do, no problem. Right? Focus groups and also characteristics of the data. Mostly the qualitative data looks like audio recordings, text, large stories, large transcripts, and sometimes visual and artifacts. So this is the nature of qualitative data, right? So if you are someone not interested in gathering so much of data, I think you should not enter in the qualitative, right? But I will show you, even though you have large amount of data, very nicely we can analyze these things today, thanks to the softwares, right? Thanks to the softwares, even though the amount of transcripts, the amount of work that we have is large, right? We can get the support of softwares very easily, right? Okay, so I'm not going to touch this data collection, which is, little bit you can read and understand. So these are some of the sampling techniques that I would like to tell you that you can use in qualitative research. Right? So you can see very different, sampling techniques are actually available. Right? So one of the sampling technique is like we call intensity sampling. Intensity sampling. So here we are trying to go for extreme cases, maybe like, now for example, if you want to study, like now these days we are conducting online examinations for the students who completed Zoom lectures, right? So then we can see in the final examination, we can take the 10 best percentage of the students. Right, so we can select the 10 best percentage of the students for our study. So we are using intensity sampling in that case. Why? We are going for extreme case, right? The 10 most successful students. Right? So you can do a study on that. How, very brighter students are very successful through the Zoom based studying. Right? So we are using intensity based sampling in that case. We are not going to deal with average students, only the best students. Homogeneous sampling, so you can read and understand this, right? I'm not going to touch this because of the time constraint, right? Now this is a little bit of important, particularly a question which comes in the Viva presentations, right? Mostly as, people who are going to the Viva, sometimes from the students, we are asking this question, right? Your sample size is not enough. We commonly tell that for our students also, right? When we are presenting only, we feel the same difficulty, right? Okay, now in qualitative research, what is the sample size actually? Right? Now the interesting thing is this: number depends, right? The fortunate thing is in a qualitative study, the number depends. Depends on what? Depends on the approach that you have selected mainly. I told you, to do a good narrative study, even one respondent is more than enough. But make sure that respondent is really fitting to your research problem. That's the interesting thing. Even one respondent enough, right? But right, the important thing is, right, one respondent you can use in a narrative study, but one respondent you cannot use in the phenomenology. Why phenomenology you cannot do that? Because in a phenomenology, we try to capture the experience of people who have gone through the same similar experience. You see, based on the research approach that you have chosen, the number of respondents will be dependent. And also you need a good justification, as I told you. You have to justify based on the research approach. Based on the research, if you have gone for a phenomenological approach, so there are very good authors actually who are talking about phenomenology. For example, Mustakas. There's an author called Mustakas. So you have to cite, right, the number of respondents appropriate for a phenomenological study based on the very renowned authors in phenomenological studies, right? And this is not about number. Please remember this point also. Qualitative research is not about the number of respondents. It's a question of how depth your data is, right, to address your research problem at the end of the day. Right? So please keep that point in your mind. So please don't think like qualitative research, we have to go for a less number, quantitative research, large number. No. Qualitative research, you can go for a less number based on the approach that you have selected. Based on the approach that you have selected. Right? Sometimes case study, when some students are doing the case study, they are going for 30 interviews also. Because in a case study, you can do that. But in a phenomenology, but in a narrative study, you cannot go for that much of your sample size. Right? So you see, the number of people in your sample depends, but it needs a proper justification at the end of the day. Right? So then, please read on your particular approach that you are going to select, and then based on that, I think you can go for a good, sample size. Right. Philosophical assumptions. I'm not sure whether the people are going to sleep when I'm going to explain the phenomenological, the philosophical assumption. Anyhow, I will touch this, right? Because quantitative, when you take, ontology, right? There is only one reality, there is only one reality available in quantitative studies. But here, remember that in the qualitative research, there are multiple realities available. That's why we are going to the depth of the data to see what are the different type of realities available, and also the reality is subjective. Reality is subjective based on the respondent, his experience, his background, and everything. That's what really important for the qualitative researchers. So then you see here, the ontological implication for the qualitative research is what? Understanding the phenomenon from multiple perspectives by capturing subjective views and experience. In qualitative research, what we do, we try to gather multiple perspectives on the same phenomena of, let's say, working from home. What are the different explanations different people have? And then we try to develop, based on our research approach, we try to answer our research question. We try to gather multiple perspectives. Now you see, now we need multiple perspective now. To gather multiple perspective, how to do that? Based on the ontology, epistemology would be determined. What is epistemology? The relationship with now you see, you want to gather multiple realities, right? Multiple stories of the people, right? Now, for example, if I am at Peradeniya and then if you are at Kotalawala Defense University, are you going to tell your whole story to me when I'm going to interview or when I'm going to have a mobile phone conversation with you? Mostly not. Why? We too, first of all, have to develop a close connection. Right? I need to develop a close connection with my interviewee, and he's going to tell this story. Right? You may have seen, right? People will talk to you very frankly and they will tell their story if you get in touch with them. Otherwise, it's like in a questionnaire, yes and no, you put just tick here and there and you will hand over the questionnaire. So we can't do that here in qualitative research. So here you see, the epistemological implication is what? A close connection between the researcher and the participant is a must. If you don't do that, right, your study is not going to be successful. Right? Try to develop a close connection. Right? Even students, now some of the students that I am supervising at the moment, they try to do the interview through Zoom. I told, okay, no problem. But before the interview, you should know each other really well. Right? So without knowing each other really well, how the other person is going to tell their story to you? That obviously cannot happen. Right? Now you see, based on the ontology, epistemology determines. So ontology, we have multiple perspective. To gather multiple perspective, we need a close connection between the researcher and the respondent. Right? So then you see the next problem. Right? Now who is going to analyze the data? Analyze the data will be done by myself or by the researcher. Right? So when you are close to the research, close to the respondent, what will happen? Right? You also involve with the discussion. You also involve with the interview. Finally, what you are going to gather is not the story that he has, the story that you want him to tell. There's a big problem there, no? In that case. Why? He's not going to tell his story. He's going to tell his story based on your interest. That should not happen. Right? This is what we call axiology. Axiology means in qualitative research, you need to tell the researcher's background, beliefs, biases, and how those things influence the research process. You need to provide details of who you are. In chapter 3, in a dissertation for qualitative research, there is a separate section need for this one. What is the axiological stance of your research? How you are going to control yourself, in the interviewing process, and in the analysis process. Right? Analysis process is very subjective in qualitative research. Right? I'll touch that point. Okay, I hope I made it clear. So I'm not sure if it is not clear, please tell me, right? So since no one is asking questions, I'm just continuing. I hope you can understand. So if you cannot understand, please feel free to ask any question. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So if not, right, I will go to next. So philosophical assumptions. So this is what I was telling. So you are, these are your participants. You are here as a researcher, but you try to connect the two very well, right? So in a qualitative research, really important, being aware of your values. What is your background? You may be an academic in a university, and then you are studying about, how entrepreneurs are going through the difficulty. So then the way that you look at entrepreneurs can be very different from the way that another entrepreneur look at the entrepreneurs. So that's why really important for you to tell in your chapter 3, what is your background, what is your belief about the research that you are studying, and about the phenomena that you are studying, and what are your biases, why you are interested in studying entrepreneurs during COVID-19. So then the people will believe you, right? When an academic write something, people will believe you. Why? Because they know that academics are people like this. So they belong to the learned community, right? So they try to see the things from a very transparent way, right? So then people will read your dissertation, people will read your manuscript. So please do that in a qualitative research, very, very important. So you don't need this in the quantitative. Making your values known to everyone. So like that, there are some strategies to deal with the axiology. So if someone interested, so we can have a depth discussion on this one later, right? Okay, quality assurance. Right? This is how you can tell the readers, please believe my study, right? So people, how you can make sure that people are believing you. So there are 3 strategies that you can have to use here. 3 strategies we call, first strategy we call credibility. What is credibility? Do the data and the findings story reflect the participant story, participant experience, not your experience? How you can do that? You need to develop a proper interview guide, right? You need to have a proper data collection procedure which is documented. You need to have interviews which are recorded. Right? And you can go for triangulation, maybe a data triangulation, data source triangulation, actually gathering data by different sources. So then there's a higher credibility of your findings. Transferability. Can I transfer my particular study to another particular context? Now you are studying the entrepreneurs in Kandy district during COVID-19 time. Can you transfer this particular story to India? How you can transfer? If you can explain your context really well, this is Kandy, these are the industries that the people are engaging at the time of COVID-19, and these are the difficulties that the people are having. So then you're explaining the context well. No, when you explain the context well, the next researcher can determine whether your research can be transferred to another context or not. Right? So explain the context really well. I must tell you, actually, qualitative research is context dependent. What does that mean? Qualitative research has a great association with the context that you are dealing with. Right? Dependability. Right? Would we arrive at similar findings or similar results if the procedure are followed? Right? Now, this is the most important thing I must tell you. This is the most important thing the examiners are expecting if you are submitting a qualitative dissertation. Right? What they need is, they need for you to show how you have done the analysis, how transparent you are in the analysis process. Otherwise, what happens? I think some of you may have listened to some of the qualitative kind of research proposal presentation or dissertation presentations. What is the most of the students are telling, right? Sir, I have selected this particular organization. These are the themes which I generated at the end. Then right? So, okay, I studied the entrepreneurs. So these are the themes. So he's telling 4 themes at the end of the day, but he or she will not tell you how they arrive the themes. Please understand, when you are going to present your findings to an academic community, the qualitative findings to academic community, we need to show how I derive the analysis, how I derive the 3 themes. Otherwise, anyone can tell, no, I derive 10 themes, I derive 5 themes, I derive 7 themes. Anyone can tell the theme, but how you derive, that's what the people are not telling. This is what the examiners need at the end of the day, right? If you can't tell that, so which means, right, the student has not done the analysis well. It's just telling you a kind of a fake story, right? So make sure that that's there. That's we call dependability. Can we believe you? Can I believe your research? Show me your analysis process. Show me your code, right? So I will tell you, how this can be handled, right? Okay, so this is the main part. What's the time? 7:22. Okay, so this is the main part. So what I have to tell, qualitative analysis is a kind of an act of reducing the data without losing its meaning. That's how you can define the qualitative data analysis. You have so many transcripts, you have so many stories, you have so many videos. Analysis means you finally try to come up with themes to represent all of your data, right? You come up with themes to represent all of your data. That's the idea of qualitative analysis, right? So see, now this is what I was telling earlier. When students are presenting qualitative research, what they tell finally, sir, I have 3 themes, I have 4 themes. They are showing the theme or the theory part. They don't show you this. Why they can't show you? Because they have not actually done the analysis, right? This is the bigger section. This is what I think most of the people have to understand if they come into the qualitative research. This is very important. So this is the analysis process. First of all, you need to do the coding, and then you have to develop the sorts or sorting of clusters, right? And then you have to synthesize. You have to find out the similarities in your categories and then try to come up with the themes, right? And then now students are showing, sir, theme 1, theme 2, theme 3. So they're showing the theme, no? Right? They don't show you this process. This is what important, right? And then now I told you, I think to answer the Chamila's question earlier, I told you grounded theory is the most advanced approach which needs a very advanced analysis, right? I must tell you, all the other 4 approaches, phenomenology, narrative, case study, and ethnography, they finish their analysis at this particular stage. With the synthesis, most of the other approaches analysis are over. But if you are planning to go for a grounded theory, you need to come down to this one, theory part, right? So if anyone of you are interested in grounded theory, so then we need to discuss from the theme how you can generate theory. From the theme how you can generate theory. That needs another 2-3 hour discussion, right? So then I'm not going to talk about the grounded theory much, but to answer the Chamila's question, right? When you come to the grounded theory, only you are coming to the theorizing part. Most of the other researchers, they end up with the synthesis, right? Okay, there's one very important rule that you need to remember in the qualitative analysis. The rule is this: you have findings, qualitative findings are there. In the case of analysis, please make sure that the findings are finally, actually, they are representing the data while addressing the research questions. These 2 conditions are very important, right? Whatever the theme that you have generated at the end, those themes should represent the data, and those themes should address the research questions. If one of these conditions is not happening, your analysis is wrong, right? So that's what I have to say, right? Okay, so let's start the journey a little bit. I'm not going to detail, right? So journey start with the coding now, right? Okay, one more thing I want to tell you, right? Before moving into the process. When you think about the qualitative data analysis strategies, different strategies are there, right? One of the, not one, the most famous analysis strategy we call generic strategy. Some of you may have heard people are telling, I use content analysis. I use thematic analysis. You may have heard that they are referring to generic strategy. Thematic analysis, content analysis, more or less, it's all about generic strategy. Generic strategy means the flow which I told you, coding, sorting, synthesizing. If grounded theory, only you come to the theorizing part, right? I hope you can understand. This is the most popular analytical method. Irrespective of the approach, except the grounded theory, you can use this particular analysis method. Can you understand? All the approaches, they can use this one. Most of the approaches, they finish the analysis in the synthesis. But when you grounded theory, only you come to here. Right? So here we are not focusing on the approach, but there is a research approach-based analysis strategy also there. Right? So this is what, Chamila, you have to be careful. I told you not to combine the approaches. Why I told you, one of the thing that you can see here. Some people, some universities, some examiners, they are expecting for you to go for the approach-based analytical method. Approach-based analytical method. If your university is expecting to do the phenomenological analysis, right? So when you come to the phenomenological analysis, actually there are 3 types available. So there is a one called interpretative phenomenological analysis. So then they are expecting that analytical method. Then if you are going to combine with the grounded theory, then how to do this? Here we are facing the challenge, right? So if the university is asking for you to do the analysis based on the approach, go for a one approach only. So narrative analysis, there is a separate method. Ethnography, there is a separate analytical method there. Case study, I think if you happen to read the book of Robert Yin, right? So you can see many analytical methods that he is suggesting, like logic model to, the pattern matching and so many analytical methods that book is recommending. Grounded theory, there is a very good book written by Kathy Chalmers on this, right? So she's suggesting a very different analytical method. So you see, you can go either for approach-based one or a generic normal one. Normal one means thematic or the content analysis, right? Okay, so I'm not going to touch this one because this needs a very big discussion. To do the phenomenological analysis, we need like 3-hour class. So we can't do that. Right? Grounded theory maybe take like 4 or 5 hours of discussion. Right? So I'm just going to show you this one. Right? I will just show you the, this, generic strategy analytical method very quickly. Right? Okay. So this is the process. So I want to tell you qualitative analysis actually, which has to have, I think this is what Dr. Richard was mentioning earlier. It is a very creative process. We need a creativity. We have to be very subjective in the process. Now, for example, if a particular transcript, interview transcript is given to me and to Dr. Richard, the way that 2 of us are analyzing is totally different because of the subjectivity involved, right? But even though we are subjective, we have to be transparent. We have to show how I have done this one, how Dr. Richard has done the analysis. Without showing that, none of us, our analysis would be believed by the academic community. This is we call the transparency. This is where we need to tackle the axiology part, right? I hope this is clear now. And also credibility, right? If you do all these things really well, only the credibility of the findings can be seen, right? So this is the kind of a characteristics involved in the qualitative analysis, right? Let's little bit talk about the coding, the very first step of the analytical process. what is coding actually? It's all about, now I will tell you this way. I will show you this photograph, right? Some of you have watched these movies now. At least you may have watched the Gamperali, you know, right? Now the question is this: does the title capture the meaning of the movie? Does the title capture the meaning of the movie? See, a change which Martin Wickramasinghe explained in Koggala down south, right? That story, a change in the, you may remember the characters of that Gamperali, right? A change happens in that particular whole story of Gamperali is nicely captured by the title of the book, title of the movie, no, right? That's what we should do, right? Even you see this one. Some of you may have watched this movie, very good one, right? For business ethics and all, I think it's a very good movie to watch. Blood Diamond, right? Diamond is there in African countries, right? But the problem is the taking diamond to a developed country showroom is the difficult part. That's why we call Blood Diamond. The title of the movie nicely captures the meaning of the movie. Even this one, Pirates of the Caribbean, right? That's the interesting and most important rule in coding, right? You may have a very big explanation, very big description, but you need to come up with the title, right? Come up with the phrase to represent your data. That's what we call coding. So you can see, coding is what? Is a word, phrase, or a sentence that represents aspects of the data or capture the essence of the data that you have. You may have so much of data, right? And then if you come up with a phrase to represent the data, that's what we call a code. Code means that to represent the data, what is the phrase that you are going to put into the data, right? Okay, so I'm going to show you a code, right? I am going to show you a code, right? Okay, let me go here. Right, give me a second. Right, I will show you this one. Right, give me a second. Right, okay, now I hope you can see my Word document. Dr. Richard, is it visible, the Word document?
Yeah, it's visible.
Visible, no problem, right? So this is a kind of actually our department document, right? It's not confidential anymore, so I'm just going to share with you. Now, coding means what? Coding means you read the paragraph, you read this one, and then you tell this paragraph, the meaning is this, right? Now, for example, right? Okay, now before that, I will show you this, right? Okay, now this is a kind of a not the interview transcript. Actually, this is a stakeholder discussion. Based on the stakeholder discussion, we develop this particular transcript, and then just for our learning purpose, I put a research question here. What is the research question? You can see the research question. What are the changes required for existing BBA students to be in line with the modern world of work? Our students are not in line with the modern world of work, right? We are all the time blaming them, no, right? So what I want to find out, what are the changes required for the students, right? So then what I can do, right? We can put something called anchor code. In analysis, we call this one anchor code. We'll do a separate section on analysis later, right? I will tell you what is anchor code. Anchor code means the code which reflect the meaning of your research question, right? So this whole research question I can reflect using what? Student changes. I want to find out the student changes, right? So student changes is what I want to find out now. So that we call anchor code, right? So let's come here. So what I'm going to search now in the document, what are the changes required for the student, right? So I will show you a one, right? So you can see here, now this one you can see, now this is a comment that you can put, right? Now when you go here, when you select this one, right? When you go here, you can go to the new comments now. So you can add to the comment, right? So then I can tell, okay, student changes, That is what? That is my anchor code. So then I read through this particular, small paragraph, and then I tell, right? My research question is what? Student changes, no? I want to find out the student changes. So what is the student change? Right? Let's see this one. Right? So when I read through this, it was explained by the lecturers that when it comes to dissertation, students have to go outside as usual, collect data, and rigorously engage with that thesis process. So what lecturers are telling? Students have to go out of the university. So we need a change for the student. What is that change? We need them to go out. So go out is a code, right? Go out is a code, right? So then when Dr. Richard may be doing this one, he will tell my code is go out. My code is go out. Go out, students. That is my code. When I write the code, I write it what? External focus. Students should have external focus. So this is my code. You see how two of our, background, two of our knowledge in English, two of our, exposure will give you different codes. Right? So sometimes when I ask this from a student to code, student will code this one as go out of university. Right? But when you go the same script to a academic, he will tell external focus. See the next one also. Right? See the next one. Okay, now here I found a code. Right? Because of most of the companies, marketing activities are connected through the head offices which are located or based in Colombo. So if students select companies based in Kandy, considering their convenience, may not get a real exposure which the university wants them to get. Right? As you know, we are located in Kandy now, right? So most of our students, when they come to the internship or the first job, they want to take a job in Kandy. That is their normal way, right? So we are telling that one, right? We are telling it's not good to get an internship opportunity in Kandy. It's not good. So we are telling a change for our students. So what is the change? Student changes. So that is my anchor code. I'm typing here one. Break the comfort zone. That is a change I want to see in my student. So that is the code. You see, like that, what you can do, you can go through this one and see the coding process. So student changes is my anchor code, and then based on that, you put here the code, engage in extra activities. Right? And then here the interesting thing is, now this particular paragraph, I can see there is another code for the same previous code called external focus. Like that, you do the full code into the whole document. Can you see? Right? So I have done only a few code because this is just a kind of illustration which I want to show you. Right? So then what you do in the analysis process. So these are the codes which I found. How many codes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think. Right? And then I go to the sorting stage. You see the sorting here. Right? So this is what I call earlier now. Right? You can see the coding, and then the next stage is sorting. Sorting means like arranging, grouping codes into categories. Right? So what I have done here. Right? So these are the codes, and then I go to the sorting stage number 1. So what I have done, student changes, I put now you see same code comes 2 times now. So I put those things into the same, just one after the other. And then I go to the sorting stage number 2, and then I put there is a frequency here. This happened 2 times, right? This happens only 1 time. This happened 2 times. This happened only 1 time, right? So actually I have only 4 codes here, only 4 codes, right? So that's my coding and sorting stage, right? And then when I go to the sorting stage, the next sorting stage, I call this one clustering. Cluster karana pokuru karana, right? So pokuru karana means what? Right? So what I do here, I as an academic who is analyzing this data, I see the point here. Okay, external focus, right? And there is a connection between external focus and engage in extracurricular activities. Then what I do, I put these 2 codes into one cluster. Can you see? Right now, what I did here, from the sorting stage, I got this particular code. I will put in a different color, right? And then I think this particular one also looks like relating to each other. Those who are having external focus, they tend to do a lot of extracurricular activities. I can see that in my students. So then I can put that into one cluster. Go to the next one. See this particular cluster? Students who want to break their comfort zone, they little bit try to be global awareness. Those who want to break the comfort zone, they like to go out of Sri Lanka and want to do higher studies. See the connection? So I try to develop another cluster. Right? You see the clustering stage. Then what to do next one? Categorizing means what? Right? So what you do in the next stage of the cluster, I look through these two particular codes, external focus and engage in extracurricular activities. Right? Now, please don't forget your research question. I told you earlier, when you do the analysis, you tend to forget the research question. Right? So read your research question all the time from your mind. That's very important. What are the changes required for the existing BBA student to be in line with the modern world of work? To be in line with the modern world of work, my student should be outward oriented. So what I did, I take these two particular codes and then I put a one term to represent both of these two codes. That's what we do in the category stage. Can you understand? And then I go to the next thing also. Global awareness and break the comfort zone. I put what kind of change is needed for my students. They need to think differently if they want to be, really doing well in the corporate world, right? Then you see, actually, I have only two themes here. What are my two themes? One theme is outward orientation. That is one theme. The other theme is think different. That is my other theme. Right? You see, this is my theme one, right? So this is my theme two. Right? You see how important for us to show this path, right? Now you can tell, okay, it's very easy to show this one because I have only 6 codes, but I will show you. One of the student who actually I just supervised, I will show you a kind of a coded transcript. This is the study which I told you about the Batiklo tourism entrepreneurs, right? You see the amount of coding this particular student has done. It's a wonderful coding work, right? Tourism challenges. So that's the anchor code, and then she put. You see the amount of coding. Can you imagine the amount of coding? You see the labor intensity of this, she actually coded for 8 interview transcripts. And then finally, I will show you the list, right? So this is the list of codes that she has generated from this one. So this is a list of codes, right? So you can see the amount of labor generated, right? And then I will show you how she has finally come up with the themes. Yes, Dr. Richard, yes. Yeah, I think I cannot hear you clearly. Yeah, okay, I think, okay, right. So then you see the amount of codes that she has generated, and she has done the sorting stage as I have shown you earlier. And then I finally show you, you see her analysis involves 33 pages. 33 pages. This is what I told you. As qualitative researchers, we need to be transparent, right? Now you see, to generate these 2 themes at the end, she has to do a lot of work, right? So this is what students have to understand when they are presenting their themes. It is not the theme, right? What is the procedure that you have undertaken? That's what really important is, right? That's what you really need to do in the analysis process. Right? So this is the theme generation ultimately. Right? So what I have shown you is a manual work. Right? So this is the whole process. Right? So you do the coding, you do the sorting, synthesizing, and then finally, so actually the analysis which I have shown you end up in the synthesis, generating themes. No? So we have not gone into theorizing part, because theorizing is mainly belonging to the a grounded theory approach. So this is the whole process, right? So this is the whole process of the analysis which I can reflect to you, right? And then what's really important at the end, you need to present and you need to interpret your results, right? So you have finally a set of themes with you, right? And then you need to present your findings with a very good approaches, right? Now these are some of the approaches, creative approaches that you can use for showing your qualitative findings. So I myself use all of these approaches. Actually I use a word cloud. Now you see in the word cloud what happens when you give a particular set of words, it will show you which words are more important in your text. Now for example, among these words, so students, internship, semester, organization, so these are appearing bigger words. So bigger words means actually those words are really important in your research, right? So then when you are trying to analyze, interpret your findings, you can use word clouds as well. And also you can develop something called conceptual map, right? So this is mainly we can use for a mainly approach like grounded theory. Because ultimately in a grounded theory, you need to show a theory. To show the theory, you can show the connections between the themes in your study. Right? So you can generate different themes and then you can show the themes by having a nice arrows, but these nice arrows have to be justified in your findings. Also, we can use a summary table. In a summary table, what happens? We are just representing the theme, the frequency, the meaning, and the evidence. And also, if you know how to use software like Nvivo, we can generate something called word tree. So the word tree means like this. Now, the term management, you can get that from your transcript, and then you can see before the word called management, what are the things available. Now, for example, you can read some of these. Now, let's say maximal level, we ignore management, and then you can link this one to another one. When you click in the Nvivo software, when you just click one of this one, it will show the relationship. You can see like when you can generate something like word tree for a quantitative researcher, they can move into correlation regression kind of analysis later. Because in qualitative research, we are showing the relationship. This particular variable links to this one and that leads to this one. So this is the kind of theory building exercise. This one lead to this and then that will lead to this. Right? So we are showing the relationship that we can see here. Right? So just quickly, I will show you one of the very easily or freely available software. So this is we call word cloud. Right? So I will show you how to generate a word cloud very quickly. Right? Now, for example, this newly developed web page called wordclouds.com. So they have actually updated it and showing. So I will show you very quickly how to do this. So you can go to word list, right? And then you can go to extracts words from text, right? So then let's say I have a kind of a Word document. So if you have a PDF document, you can select this one. If I have a Word document, so I can go to that Office document and then I can browse it. Right? So then I can go to one of these, document that I have. Let's say, okay, I take a very simple one. Okay, I will take this one, right? Exercise document. So then I can open it. So you can see the particular software will generate the word cloud, the word tree for you, right? So this is the word tree. So in that particular document, the words which are appearing now it comes here one by one. right? It's very easily coming, right? So this is not Nvivo. Please understand, this is not Nvivo. This is a very, freely available software. So any one of you can use. Just type word cloud in your Google. So then it will come, right? So then you can actually go and have different shapes even if you want. So I can put to any of the shape. So if I like, let's say shape like this, I can do that. So then my data will come into that, right? So then you can, if this particular picture has something to do with your, data in your analysis and the interpretation part, you can export this one. So you can save it as an image. Just put save image as, so then it will be saved as a JPEG document. So you can copy and paste that particular picture into your dissertation very easily. So that you can do. So let's say save image as, just try it. Go to desktop. Just put download, maybe download 1, right? So then save. Right, so then it would be appeared in my desktop mostly. We'll see. Give me a second. Right. Yeah, it's here. Right. So my document is there. I can get that one. Right. I can copy it. So then if I am interested, so then I can come to my Word document and I can paste it here. Right. So then whatever the interpretation that you want to write it about this particular one, you can write it. Right? So these are some of the freely available softwares are also there. But I must tell you, if you want to do a rigorous analysis, you need to go to the Nvivo. Nvivo is just a one software actually that we have, but we have some other softwares like QDA Minolite, Max QDA, and then Atlas TI. There are around 5-6 softwares they are available for qualitative research. So you can select one of the software which is convenient to you. So the one that I use is actually Nvivo 12, the latest edition. So Nvivo 12. So then actually they have a free version. Free version means 14-day trial version is available. So when you go here, you can download the free version only for 14 days. So then if you like the software, so then you can, use it for some time, right? Okay, so we didn't do the analysis actually through software, right? So because of the time constraint, right? So if you want, we have to do that one in another separate day, right? Even we didn't do the analysis in detail, I must tell you. I just show you the analysis process. I didn't take you through the analysis, right? Okay, how to present the qualitative findings. So there are 3 approaches to present your qualitative findings. One way we call linear approach, non-linear approach, and the synthesized approach. I personally prefer the linear approach. Linear approach, what happens? You write down your research question, and then you develop your themes, or you tell your theme, and then the meaning of the theme, and then you provide the evidence for your theme. Right? So this is basically a chapter 4. Chapter 4, this is the way to present. Some people are using non-linear, some people are using synthesized also, but these are very complicated. I think I recommend any one of you to use the linear approach because it's very easy to use, right? Sorry. So this is just example of how you can use the linear approach. So just type down your research question, right? And then you tell your theme, you explain your theme with the explanation, and then you support your theme with the literature, and then you tell your own findings, right, with your interview excerpts. If you are using Nvivo, you can bring your Nvivo data into here when you're showing your findings, right? And then you interpret your findings, right, with respect to the particular research question, right? So that is your chapter 4, right, your data presentation, right? And then chapter 5, basically in a dissertation work, it comes basically discussion and your implications. So that's going to be more or less same with the quantitative and qualitative, right? Okay, so that's what actually I planned for these 2 hours, right? So what we may discuss is the main overview, but I didn't take you through the whole rigorous analysis process because of the time constraint. Yes, any question if you have?
Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm Menaka, a lecturer from Social Sciences Department.
Yes,
I
Menaka,
have
yes.
one question. Now, when
Yeah.
it comes to research discussion stage,
Okay.
in quantitative, whatever the findings we support with the previous literature, no?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in the qualitative studies also, is it the same?
Yeah, yeah. So they actually it's the same, but when you come to the what we call grounded theory, there's a difference, right? So when you come to the discussion chapter, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, there's no difference because in the discussion you mainly now you see here, right? Now this is the approach that I was mainly using, right? Which is we call in the literature we call it linear approach. You see the way, right? I put the research question. I'm not writing actually the research question, right? I type it as a heading. The changes required for students to be in line with the modern world of work. That is my subtitle in the discussion section. And then I tell my themes. What are the themes which I generated? So students have to be outward oriented. That is one of the themes. And then I explain the theme. And then I support the theme with the literature. I think, Menaka, here your answer is there. Right? You need
Yes,
to
sir.
you need to explain the theme backing the literature, right? And then once again, Menaka, you need to bring your own findings. Here, you see, this is the literature. You bring your findings and then you put the interpretation. Right? Interpretation means what? You go back to your context and you explain the findings with respect to your context. Right? That's what happened in the interpretation. But Menaka, since you asking this question, I must tell you, when it comes to grounded theory that some of you may be knowing, it does not start with the literature, right? I think we have to do a separate session on grounded theory if you want to understand that. Grounded theory, what we tell in the recent literature, mainly from the Kathy Chalmers, what she's studying, grounded theory does not have to start with the literature, right? So grounded theory has to start with the data. When you start with the data, right, how you can talk about the literature? Now there's a mismatch here. Now I will tell you the mismatch. Universities, conventionally, we are expecting students to write a literature review chapter. If a student is going to use a grounded theory, I think that student have a difficulty. But I must tell you, even some foreign universities, what they do, even the grounded theory does not have to use what we call theory or the literature. Since the university is expecting for you to submit a literature review chapter as a student, you need to do that. Right? So you need to present your literature review chapter because it's a university requirement. Right? So please check with the particular university that if you are going to register for some research, so you need to check that. What is their dissertation structure? Some of the universities, they clearly tell, if you are going for grounded theory, we are not expecting for you to have a literature review chapter, right? But some universities, whether it's grounded or whatever, we need a literature review chapter. Ultimately, we have to satisfy the particular institutional goal as well, right? So that's what I have said. But Menaka, grounded theory, theoretically, we don't need to show the literature. But when you look into some of the publications, manuscripts, still some people tend to use the literature under the discussion section. Why? In the grounded theory, you are generating a theme now, right? And then when you try to explain the theme in more detail, sometimes you need the support of a little bit of existing literature as well. So that's what I can answer, but it may not be enough, for a person coming from social science. I know. Because
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Even though I'm attached to social sciences department, I'm into management.
Right. Okay.
Thank you so much for the answer. And I would say it's a very informative presentation and looking forward for more sessions from you, sir.
Okay. Dr. Richard, what shall we do? Do we have any other questions? I can spend time, no problem.
Let's see whether there are any questions. Yeah. Couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm okay, no problem for me. Yeah.
Dr. Rand, I also have a question now. In quantitative data analysis, now some of the techniques are outdated, like regression. So Now the structural equation modeling is used, and also some the new softwares are used. So in the qualitative data analysis, what are the, I mean, for publishable research, what are the expectation of the journal?
Yeah. I think now this is where, Dr. Richard, I think we have to address this part. Right? I think your question is really, really important, because most of the undergraduate level, even in the master's level, we do use generic strategy. We call content analysis.
Okay.
Or thematic analysis. That's the process which I explained to you. Right? But Dr. Richard, now the question that you asked is really, really important. Now, when you look at some of the journals are actually attracting only phenomenological studies.
Yeah.
Then they tell you cannot use a generic strategy, you have to use the phenomenological analysis method. Right? Actually, I just have another PowerPoint slide. Probably I'm not sure whether it's there. I will just show you. Right, just give me a second. This is basically the analysis part. I'm not sure whether it's included. Give me a second. Yeah, I just want to show you how rigorous some of the analysis is. Okay, so now for here, now for example, even like when you go for the generic, what we call analysis method, there are, now you see 32 coding methods are available according to Saldanha. 32 coding methods.
Okay.
Right now, I just have shown you how to do the coding, but when you take the coding, you have 32 coding methods. Different coding methods are there. Right? So based on your research problem, actually your coding should also be changed. Right? And just to answer the Dr. Richard's question, very clearly, yeah, I think I'm sorry because I didn't prepare the slides for that. So anyhow, what I want to tell is, still, Dr. Richard, the generic strategy is not outdated, because this is the most popular, most prevalent method.
Okay.
Still, journals and everyone is accepting, even PhD level, they're accepting. But some of the universities are very clearly tell, if you are going for grounded theory research, you need to go for grounded theory analysis, right? Which is very, very time consuming, which is very, very difficult to do, right? So then even case study one, we can go for not for generic strategy, case study based analysis method like logic analysis, or maybe explanation building, pattern matching, different methods are there, right? That actually based on the particular journal sometimes, or maybe based on, if you are submitting a dissertation, based on that particular university requirement, right? So what I have to say, if you are targeting a journal, better to check whether that particular journal entertains the generic strategy or not.
Okay.
If they are not entertaining the generic strategy, I think we should not spend the time, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in something like phenomenological analysis, if we can learn and do, it's a really good analytical method. Now, what happens in the phenomenological analysis, I will just show you here. Now, I told you earlier in this slide, now participants are somewhere, no? So we as a researcher, we are in another way. In the IPA method, in the phenomenological analysis, what happens? We try to put our background, our beliefs and biases away from the analysis process. So there are techniques for that, right? So that happens only within the phenomenological analysis method. That's what those journalists are expecting, right? So then I think, better we know different analytical methods more than just the content analysis. So there are a lot to learn actually here. Yeah. I must tell you, yeah, there are a lot to learn here. Yes. Even I am also not that much familiar with something like narrative analysis. I'm just learning the ethnographic analysis these days because some of the students want to do the digital ethnographic studies. Because now because of the COVID, actually, we tend to analyze the digital media data now.
Yeah.
So then you can do a lot of research on digital ethnography. So then you need to use the ethnographic analysis method.
Okay, Dr. Amda, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have come to the end of the session. So on behalf of the Dean, Faculty of Management, Humanities, Social Sciences and Humanities, and Head Department of Management and Finance, and all the participants, let me express our gratitude to you, Dr. Nuresh Ramda. Thank you very much for your time investment. And that was a really useful, very comprehensive the presentation, and we got a comprehensive presentation. So it's a really good overview for the qualitative research, and also for myself, actually, I got a good motivation to do qualitative research. Thank you very much once again, and we are looking forward to have your service in the future as well. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard. I think this is a learning process for all of us. So even though I did qualitative analysis for my PhD, still I am learning, because that much of a lot of things are there here, right?
Yeah.
Now, which I told you, like when you go for phenomenology, there are a lot of phenomenological analytical method. When you go for case study method, there are so many methods are there, right? Yeah. I think so. If someone is interested, I think there's a lot to learn here, and also there's a big trend for qualitative research as well in the academia, and particularly in management and social sciences. So then we can invite members to do some qualitative research work in addition to some of the quantitative research work that they are doing. So then thank you very much, everyone. So what I have to just finally say is qualitative research is a human intelligence and creativity driven process. Even though you are going to learn some softwares, don't stick your analysis to a software like in quantitative. You can't do that in qualitative. Your brain and your creativity is much more important in this analysis process. Thank you very much, Dr. Richard, for giving us the opportunity to share my experience with all of your colleagues. And then thank you very much for listening to me for these 2 hours. So we'll see you in a later session. Yeah, thank you.